Now, euthanasia is a big, big part of this world agenda, and in the League of Nations, when they formed it, you had Aldous Huxley, his brother, Julian Huxley, when they developed the United Nations from the League of Nations. Huxley was the first CEO of it. He talked about all the things to come. They would encourage euthanasia. They'd encourage, he says, massive promiscuity so that people would not bond, especially if you can get them really rutting like rabbits before they're in puberty. They'll never bond in their lifetime. There's no need to. And again, give them physical enticements, goods and commerce and jobs. And that way they won't breed. That was the main thing. And homosexuality was to get pushed to the top as well, by the way, because again, they wouldn't breed. Anything where they would make sure that children were not born was to be promoted. Many, 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 many years ago. But euthanasia was too. And they've tried to get euthanasia into all the European countries. Holland was the first one to go along with it. Now, if you just feel a bit off weather, you've had enough of scary news, you just go and get euthanized. They euthanized a nun by mistake too and got off with that as well. And then you have families bribing doctors to bump somebody off for the will. All of this kind of stuff is happening. And through the back door in Britain, they seem to have got it through. And it says here, end-of-life patient charter launched. The Royal College of GPs, General Practitioners, and the Royal College of Nursing have launched a new patient charter on end-of-life care, they're calling it. Published today, the charter focuses on the care of people who are nearing the end of their life and aims to ensure their final wishes are carried out. Now, lawyers would have a field day with that wording. All GP practice across England will receive a copy of the charter, which contains guidelines on what all patients should be able to expect from their family doctor and primary health care team. Professor Kerry Thomas, clinical champion for end-of-life care at the RCGP, said GPs and their teams have a special relationship not just with their patients, but the people close to them, all of whom need special care and support through the process of dying. Now, they already have teams, for instance, that they fly in to try and get people to get their organs from their relatives. They fly these pro teams in to try and convince the relatives to give the go-ahead. And it's the same kind of thing here. They'll fly these guys in and say, well, you know, you could just go all the way and get euthanized. It'd be painless. It'd be quite harmless and so on. But I've said for years now, I don't care what people do personally. People have always chosen euthanasia rather than suffer through definitely terminal diseases that are painful. But that's a personal matter and it's, a family matter. And they'll always find ways to do it. You cannot give this power to the state. You must never give this power to the state. That's what I'm saying. What people want to do, it's up to them. It's their choice. But this power cannot be given to the state, because once they go ahead with it, they expand the rules, they expand the ways in which it can be done and conditions it can be done upon. And they've always wanted this on the books. And when you have a national health service and government's running it, and they've got cost efficiency on the go and all the rest of it, cutbacks, believe you me, if it's a choice between treating you to make you live a few years longer or bumping you off with a cheap pill, that you're going to get the cheap pill. Common sense. Anyway, I'll put this link up tonight too at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. We've got a caller from Nevada. That's Rick, is on the line. Are you there, Rick?
Yes, Alan.
Yes.
You spoke of Terry. You spoke of the euthanasia power and not letting that get into the hands of the state. But this already happened in the case of Terry Schiavo, didn't it?
That did. It was a judge ordered it. That put her to death, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only did they kill her, but they tortured her for a good long time.
Yep.
They gradually inured her to being able to survive for long periods without water, because they did it several times in different court rulings leading up to the final to her killing. And in fact, she was given no water for the final almost 2 weeks of her life.
And that's standard now across the U.S. It's standard across the U.S. and all these hospices. That's what they decided to do, is just basically starve them to death and that they die of thirst as well. I mean, what a way to take care of a person. People can be taken care of to the very end and fed and watered without that. There's no need for that whatsoever. But what they're doing is normalizing it in the public's mind that this is how it's to be. And they're trying to say that it's economically effective. It's far better for the economy than spending money. Well, I'm sorry, there's nothing more important than life, human life, if you want to spend money on. Human life, not dishing it across the planet or causing wars. It should go to human life. That's what money's for. Yeah.
There is a good side of the story of the Terry Shiloh case at the very end, though, and the Pinellas County Sheriff's deputies who went to that hospice and attempted to rescue her, although they were turned back by the local city police.
Yeah.
They at least had the courage to try.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, there are decent people here who knows what's going on, and they know what's happening. If it becomes the norm, it's going to be a horror show. And if we can't stand up for people who are going through this now and making sure they're taken care of properly until they die normally, it doesn't matter if it lasts weeks or months or even a year longer. Who cares? It should be done that way. That's how it used to be done. But at one time, too, you see, we had families that took care of us, and that helped you mature as members of the family died. You took care of them. It made you respect life all the more. We don't respect life anymore. We're in a nihilistic system. And they have to make examples every so often and put it into the media. And it's almost like a magical spell it weaves in the mind that this is inevitable and this is the way of the future. Well, it doesn't have to be the way of the future. But yeah, if the sheriff went and did that, then hats off to him for being a human being. Yeah.
But, Friedrich Nietzsche said that the barometer of a society's goodness is how it treats its elderly. It's old.
Absolutely.
And that also to its weak.
Yes, that's right.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for calling. I mean, it's just astonishing to watch as Britain goes under and all these different agendas, and it's still at war, of course. The United Nations has got all these guys at war to plunder countries for their oil and gold and silver, natural resources, water supplies, and standardize it into the same disgusting system, so they'll lose all their values as well. The values have sustained them for thousands of years. No one can be independent. They must be interdependent. That means totally dependent on the big banking system they're bringing in. And life, your life, means nothing to them. So we got to nip this in the bud and say we've had enough and no more. From Hamish myself from Ontario, Canada, it's good night to me, your God, or your gods go with you. Guess what they come up with now? Killing a camel to earn a carbon credit may seem a curious way to tackle climate change, but one country is poised to allow investors to do precisely that. The camel culling plan is one of the first to arise under the Australian government's new carbon farming initiative, a scheme that lets farmers or investors claim carbon credits if they can show they have cut greenhouse gas emissions. First the camels and then what? You maybe, huh? And I thought it was a joke at first, but it's not. I've also talked about the massive push now for, you understand, we're all classed as economic units. That's your only purpose in this system, is to serve the system, work in it, and obey all the laws, be good. That means doing everything you're told to do, pay taxes, and purchase things now and then, be a consumer to an extent. All that's dying off. Eventually it'll all go to carbon taxes and so on, all your excess money. But also, as they're slashing back health systems across basically the world now, it's because they've come to a decision a long time ago. And it's far easier to help you die and cheaper than to keep you alive. And anyone 60 or over, eventually you're going to get asked, do you want to die rather than live? You're going to be offered this. And I'll read about this when I come back from this break. As I say, I'm talking about assisted suicide. Because you see, the big boys at the top, as I say, they say it's more expensive to keep you alive. If after you hit 60 you're going to have different illnesses, you might last another 30 years with these illnesses. But they don't want to have to put out the cash on you. They want all the cash that you paid in for your insurance and all the rest of it and your pensions to go to them. In fact, they've already admitted in Britain, for instance, that the starting up project money for the communitarian ideas is coming from all these unclaimed bank accounts. These folk who've died off generally or been killed off by the national health system. So they're really promoting this as an alternative. And I've always said doesn't matter how you feel about this, you can never give this power to the state because the state has a political agenda and a social agenda. And it's nothing to do with your demise in a painless fashion. It's to do with economics. And you cannot give that power to them. But it says here, Terry Pratchett filmed to show an assisted death. The last moments of a terminally ill man who travelled to an assisted suicide clinic to end his life will be shown in a documentary presented by the best-selling author Sir Terry Pratchett. So the BBC's become the rah-rah leader for this assisted suicide. But of course they work for the government since they get paid by them. Viewers of the BBC Two show will see the writer whose Discworld series of books have sold millions of copies worldwide at the Dignitas clinic in Switzerland. It's an ad for the clinic too, of course, with a 71-year-old motor neuron disease sufferer named only as Peter. So it goes on about how he's going through all this, and he suffered motor neuron disease for years, and so on and so on. So Dr. Peter Saunders, director of the charity Care Not Killing, criticised the BBC's decision to broadcast the programme, saying it was acting like a cheerleader for legalising assisted suicide. But that's what they do. They're owned by the government. Yeah. He said it's regrettable that a man's death will be shown on screen, but we're also concerned that this documentary will not be balanced. Given Sir Terry Pratchett's position, the fear is that it will show all the supposed benefits of assisted death with very little redress. And it won't go into the fact, as I say, that the government's all happy because all that pension cash then they can snaffle. And if you've got insurance policies for healthcare and all that, they grab that too. And that's what it's all about, economics. Economics and who should live and who should die. What's your value to your community will be eventually put on a questionnaire that you will be handed one day. What is your value? Why are you so important to your community? That's what George Bernard Shaw said. And I've put up the link so many times where you hear him discussing it for the Fabian Society, which is just a branch of the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which runs the left wing. And he said eventually the people will have to come to us and ask, we'll ask them, why should we keep you alive? Even if you're fit. I'm not kidding about that. And also to understand too, on some long-running soap in Britain too, they showed recently a series where someone's gay lover was dying and the guy puts a pillow over his face and kills him out of compassion. Or maybe it's some new kinky way of enjoying themselves.